Hi, my name's Beth Metcalf. I'm the Client Services Coordinator for Parkinson, Alberta. We have an office right here in Medicine Hat. We're here today to talk about Parkinson disease. I have a very special guest, Mark Bolender, who's willing to tell his story about living with this disease for the past 10 years. Mark, welcome.
Thanks, Beth. Joy to be with you.
It's great to have you, and thank you so much for agreeing to come today.
You're welcome.
So, Mark, you were diagnosed about 10 to 7 years ago with the disease?
2010, June of 2010, yes.
And when you heard the words Parkinson's...
Oh, I couldn't believe it.
Yeah? Shocking?
I couldn't believe it. I had a few symptoms that I didn't know were Parkinsonian. My right side started to feel weak. My hand would bang against my leg as I walked, and I had pain in my shoulder. And my family doctor was not convinced it was Parkinson's. He thought it was some kind of spine issue, so he sent me to the spine clinic in Calgary. And the doctor took one look at me and she said, "You don't have spine issues, you've got Parkinson's. I'm going to refer you to the movement disorder clinic."
And from there...
That was in March, and in June I met with Dr. Ranawaya of the movement disorder clinic.
Right.
He took one look at me, had me walk up and down the hall and do this and a few other things. He said, "You have Parkinson's."
Did you ever think that would be something?
No. My grandfather had Parkinson's. I remember as a little boy visiting him in the hospital. I never thought it would touch me. Never. So it's been a journey now since 2010. This is now 6.5 years. And providentially, with medication, I'm able to function fairly well if I watch myself, take my meds, rest when I need to. I find that I was complaining to the nurse about a year or so ago, say the medicine is wearing off. She said, "No, the medicine's not wearing off. Your symptoms are getting worse."
So it's progressing.
It's progressing. Not as quickly as some of my colleagues, which I'm thankful for, but it is progressing. I take 21 pills a day, and every 3 hours I take them. And sometimes I bulk up if I have an assignment, particularly that I need to be on top of. But I try not to take them too much. Mm-hmm. But they help.
Well, that's important.
And it's the alternative to being weak or being disabled that I want to avoid if I can when I need to be up for things. Yeah.
So Mark, can you tell me what your day-to-day living is like? Like, do you still do some of the things that you did prior to having this diagnosis, or has your life sort of modified and adapt to include what I call Mr. Parkinson's into life living?
Well, I was a pastor for 42 years, a clergy, and so I've been retired now since 14, so that's 2.5 years. But I was diagnosed with Parkinson's while I was pastoring, and the church was wonderful. They said, "We'll cut you back to 4 days, but we'll pay you for a full week, and just do what you can do." So I limited myself to study and to preaching particularly. Since I've retired, the church has retained me on part-time, so I'm on 10 hours a week. Mm-hmm. But I also deliver the Medicine Hat News, so I get up at 4 o'clock in the morning.
Oh my!
And I take my meds, and I get my exercise, and I get paid for it. So I have 60 customers that I try to deliver papers to before 6 o'clock in the morning. So I take my meds at 4. I take them again at 6. Take them again at 8.
Oh wow!
And then it's out to 3 hours. So can I do the things I did before? Not quite. It's getting more difficult to do. So I do my papers. Then usually in the morning I have from about 10 till noon when I'm feeling strong. This morning I had a chapel service over at Meadow Ridge Senior Village that I was speaking at.
Right.
Went home and collapsed, had a nap, took my meds, got here for this session. I'll be good for about another hour or so yet, and I'll need some more meds and need to chill out for the evening.
So you really had to kind of adjust your life.
Yeah.
Were you angry when you heard the word Parkinson's?
Angry. I was stunned. I don't know if I was angry. because of my faith, I've wrestled with God about it. There have been nights I've laid in bed absolutely weak and not in pain unless I get rigid, and then the pain comes, saying, I can go home now, Lord. You can take me now. That's rather selfish thinking, but it's an escape. So I don't think I get angry. I get questioning.
That's a nicer way of putting it.
Thank
Questioning.
you. So I try to cope with whatever the situation is, and sometimes I cope better than others.
Do you find that when you're under a great amount of stress,
Yeah.
do you find your symptoms increase?
Yeah. For instance, now I'm tremoring more than I usually do. 30% of us don't tremor. And I don't tremor unless I'm getting to the end of my phase, or I'm in I'm in a nervous situation. I find often when I have a funeral, I'll sit on the platform and I'll tremor, and I'll say, Lord, help me. Just help me get to the pulpit, then I'll be okay. I'm sorry, do I adjust to what's happening?
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. It sounds like from what you're explaining, you do adjustments. Every hour, every minute,
Oh,
you're
man.
always constantly adjusting
Yeah.
something to accommodate.
Right. Home care was wonderful. If I can just change the subject a little bit.
Certainly.
It was through you, thank you, and you're a wonderful advocate and a wonderful servant, and you've done so much for us. I appreciate it very, very much.
Thank you.
Just let me back up a bit. The first support group I ever went to, you invited me and you greeted me. One of the older gentlemen took me aside and said, don't let what you see here get you down. And I really appreciated that. He said, you don't have Parkinson's, you've been diagnosed with Parkinson's. And I met another chap who said, as long as I get my hands on the steering wheel, I'm okay. So the beginning of the support groups was wonderful. I don't get to them as often as I did before because my schedule has changed. But you put me in touch with home care, and it was wonderful. They came to our home and evaluated our home as to what aids could be given to help me with movement around the house. So things like bed railings, grab bars in the bathroom, raised toilet seats, things to avoid, keeping clutter out of the way when I walk through the house.
Yeah.
My wife is forever clearing the way for me. I find that in tighter spaces, I'm apt to fall more easily than in larger spaces where the hall is large. So Karen is wonderful to keep the clutter away, jump out of the way if I'm coming. And there's always a door to grab onto if I feel I'm going to fall. I find it difficult to stand up straight. I tend to lean forward when I'm working on things.
Right.
I'm afraid if I stand up, I'm going to fall backwards, which is, I don't like, but that's how it is.
That's exactly what Mr. Parkinson's does. Not to everybody, but to some people, they experience exactly what you've just explained. You mentioned Karen. Karen's your wife,
Yes.
correct?
Wonderful.
How long have you and Karen been married?
Oh my, now you're testing me. 45 years last June. It'll be 46 years this June. We met in grade 10.
High school sweethearts.
High school sweetheart. I was transferred to her high school for just 1 year, the high school she attended. And this isn't a Parkinson story, but it's background. My best friend wanted to meet his former girlfriend. So he was going to the study hall. And he went in there and sat so he could talk with Jeanette. And Karen was sitting next to Jeanette. And I said, oh, Karen, could you help me with my math? Could you help me with my science? And at the end of grade 10, we had our first date. And we were 15. And I'm 68 now. So we dated 7 years and got married when 1971. So 46 years this summer. She's wonderful. Beth, I couldn't do it without Karen.
I've met Karen a few times, and I think she's a marvelous lady and very warm and compassionate. So You're not traveling this journey by yourself. Karen is by your side.
Oh, I couldn't do it without her. Yeah.
I know in some of our conversations we've had, you've mentioned to me that sometimes you feel like you're a real burden on Karen. Can you kind of explain what you mean by that? Because there may be some people listening in today that are feeling what you're feeling as well, and maybe can't put words to it exactly either.
Well, I can't do things like I used to do them. For instance, I can't help vacuum the house. I'll trip over the vacuum cleaner.
How many men want to vacuum the house?
Well, more should than do, I suppose. Or taking out the garbage. Or saying, I don't think you should drive tonight. I'll drive home. I'll say, no, I'm okay. And she'll say, no, I think I should drive home tonight. She looks out for me. She guards my schedule like a lioness, to say, no, you can't do that, or that's too much, or you're putting too much into the day for that. You need to cut this out. She has just been a great support. I couldn't do with it. People say, how's Karen? I said, she's tired looking after me. And she makes wonderful meals. I made a deal with her years ago that if she'll make the food, I'll clean up the kitchen. So I still clean up the kitchen every night after supper. I put the stuff in the dish. We bought a dishwasher when I made that agreement.
Good for you.
So I fill the dishwasher. And she'll often go downstairs and play the piano while that's happening. And it's kind of a gear down time for me too. But by early evening, I'm shot. My energy's gone, and I'm soon heading for bed. And I don't like telling the secret, but we can't sleep in the same room because I'm restless. I get up too much and will disturb her. But I have visitation rights to her room, and she to mine.
Yeah.
She's a wonderful, wonderful support and my best friend.
Well, I think you've got a wonderful wife.
I really do.
And it's the Mark and Karen team. You need each other because you can't go through this alone. And nobody should go through the journey of Parkinson's alone. Even if they don't have a husband or a wife, they can reach out. And you talk about church, they can reach out to the faith community that they belong to, reach out to maybe family members or neighbors. I think people need to understand that there's people surrounding them that want to not necessarily hold their hand and walk them down the gate, but they want to help them walk the gate because there's going to be some stumbling, there's going to be some challenges, for sure.
I'm very thankful for our neighbors. They understand. They don't baby me, but they understand if I stumble or if I have to go in early or something like that. And Karen, I was thinking of some of the colleagues that I know whose husbands are quite incapacitated, and their wives are of great support, an advocate for them when they can't speak.
Right.
And I just say, maybe that's what I'll be someday. I push that thought far away, but that is very likely possible. And she's an advocate for me. When we go to the doctor, the family doctor, she comes in with me. And the doctor kind of joked around a few times. I said, no, I have my general manager here. She will ask the questions that I'm too embarrassed to ask or that I don't think about asking, or she covers the whole gamut of my health situation. I was also treated for prostate cancer in the midst of this whole thing, so it's been a bit of a challenge with both. But that's under control largely, and with the medication, the Parkinson's is stable.
That had to be horrific in itself. I mean, you're diagnosed 7 years ago with Parkinson's, and then during this time, you're diagnosed with something else.
Yeah, in 13, so that's 4 years ago, yeah.
So Mark, what are the things that you do to keep your spirits lifted, knowing that this disease is progressive? It may be, down the road, you may be that person that can't talk and maybe isn't able to move around. What are you doing? What do you do? Are you
Well, I find great joy in my part-time work at the church. They call me visitation pastor. And they say, just go visit old people, young people, just across the section as you feel led to do. And I find great fulfillment in that. I feel I'm using my gifts and experience, even in a more limited way. I'm still finding fulfillment in that. My faith means a lot to me. My trust in Jesus, and he and I talk regularly. I enjoy gospel music, quartet music. I sang in a quartet years ago when I was in college, and we have a CD of that, and my wife, I'm sure, is tired of hearing me play it in the house, but I play it time and time again. What was your question?
What you do in your day-to-day life to keep your spirits lifted.
Yeah.
Because I think this disease can suck people dry if they allow it to.
Yeah.
And I know you, from just personally watching you and having conversations, you don't allow this disease to suck you dry. You kind of push it back and go, okay, hey, not today.
I appreciate what that friend told me. He said, you may be diagnosed with it, but you don't have it. And I refuse to own it. That may sound impossible, but I refuse to own it. I say, I've been diagnosed with, and that helps me. And maybe there'll be a miracle cure someday. Mm-hmm. Maybe they'll be able to drill those holes in the back of my skull and put the stuff down that I didn't qualify for last time. And maybe not. But I'm not afraid of death either. And I just don't like the process.
And I know as we're talking today, I can see you're getting some emotion. And I think that's okay. It's okay to have those emotions because we need to be able to express those emotions. And you mentioned earlier in our conversation that you attended support group. Can you tell me a little bit more, what kind of things do you get out of the Parkinson Alberta support group when you are able to attend?
I get a feeling, you have that too? That's how you feel? I'm not a stranger. I'm not some kook. This is reality. Mm-hmm. That's the biggest comfort for me. And and there's somebody like you who advocates for us and champions for us and says we can do it together. I really appreciate that. Yeah.
I think of all diseases, this one is so invisible to people. It's not openly talked about. People are fearful of Parkinson's, and I haven't yet been able to pinpoint what their fear is. I know that, I've had people come and say, I've been diagnosed, and they would say to me, the one thing I hope I never was diagnosed with was Parkinson disease. And I always come back to them and say, it could be a far worse thing that you're diagnosed. You could have terminal this or terminal that. Do you feel that you have had to self-educate yourself with Parkinson's and symptoms and medications, or do you feel that it's sort of been a multidisciplinary team take on it where, you work with your pharmacist, you work with your neurologist, you work with your GP, you work with myself as the client services coordinator. Do you feel that, it's a team approach and everybody's offering education, or do you feel you've been out there left alone to swim?
I don't feel alone at all. I feel very supported, and I take what I can get wherever I can get it. Mm-hmm. We've also discovered a couple natural products, and my neurologist has said, be careful. If it helps you, use it, but don't spend a lot of money on stuff that doesn't work. We found one particular product that really helps clear away the clutter between the cells so the dopamine can flow again. Mm-hmm. And Karen says when I'm on that, I'm brighter, and when I'm not, I'm duller. So I've got one natural product that I use. But the pharmacist is very supportive, the neurologist, Parkinson Alberta. Our family doctor is very much aware of what's happening. And I take the support wherever I can get it. Mm-hmm. And it's a good journey, though, Beth. It's a good journey.
It's life learning.
Yeah. You talked about being emotional. I was over at Meadow Ridge. Did I mention that earlier today?
Yeah, you did actually.
My memory's
No.
fading too.
You were over there giving
a chapel service.
Right.
But I met a friend, a good friend, who's there, and he's in a tough spot. And I find I'm not as emotionally resilient as I once was. And I break down. And I did this morning. And the people that I was with didn't say anything. They just let me be for a few minutes, and I appreciated that. I feel things more keenly, or I don't have the reserve to I'm not as emotionally resilient as I once was. And I get my words mixed up. And I can't think as clearly as I used to think. And I'll start talking fast with a lower voice, and they say, slow down, speak up. Sometimes Karen will say, what are you saying? And I'll turn around and say, I am saying that I love you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we joke about her hearing and my lower voice and rapid thinking. I have a tendency to eat fast, and that's not. Karen says, just slow down.
So do you have a strategy in place when you find that you're eating fast?
Yeah, Karen.
Just listening to what Karen says, or?
Mark, now just slow down. Okay, I'll slow down, because I finish before she does, and it's not because she takes bigger portions, but it's just how it is. Something else I was going to tell you about. My memory's so bad.
I think there's a lot of tips and strategies that people use to compensate the difficulties that they encounter. I know I just came today from an education session that Parkinson Alberta here in Medicine Hat hosted with a speech-language pathologist, and they were talking about eating food too fast. And so one of the strategies that they suggested is that people put their fork down after every scoopful and kind of chew the food and make sure you get it down, because sometimes what can happen is you can aspirate because you're eating so fast and it can pocket. Drinking fluid to keep the vocal folds hydrated is important as well.
Your swallowing changes. And you're right. If some folks took us out for supper last night, early supper, and I had pierogies and sausage. And I found I needed to take more time than usual to eat the sausage. I love it, but I had to chew it a lot longer lest I choked on trying to swallow it. Sometimes if I'm not sitting up straight, when I take my pills, they'll get caught in my throat. Yeah, the stuff you learn.
It's day-to-day living,
it
it's
changes.
day-to-day new experiences.
Yeah.
But Mark, I think, you're a prime example that you won't let this disease take over you, and that you're still Mark. That's who you are. You will never lose that identity. And I think the mentor that you talk about that you met at one of the first support groups is very true.
Right. Right.
You're not gonna die from the disease. And I think sometimes people think you're gonna die from Parkinson's disease, and you don't.
That's right. You die with it, not from it.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's usually all those other underlying
Sure.
conditions that creep in,
Yeah.
like diabetes or, respiratory problems. So,
And I've been blessed. I have had relatively few health issues. The prostate cancer was one. But other than that, I've lived a good, healthy life. I was born in West Africa, and I kid my wife to say it's my immunity system that got built up as a kid that I can handle anything. And I don't know if that's true or not, but that was part of the history.
I would like to ask you, Mark, as we're closing off today's show, could you give a message out there to someone who may be tuned in, listening to today's show, a message of hope, facing Parkinson's disease?
You can do it. Contact Beth. She's a wonderful advocate. She will support in any way she can. And you can be a champion. There is hope. We may have some of our physical abilities diminish, but you can do it. And by the grace of God and with His strength and the support of loved ones, you can make it too.
I want to thank you, Mark, for joining me today on today's program. And would you please thank Karen? I think you've got a wonderful wife and a good supporter there to help you walk this journey having Parkinson's disease.
Thanks.
I'd like to thank you for joining in today. If you're looking for more information on Parkinson's disease or are looking for some support, please look up Parkinson Alberta at parkinsonalberta.ca. That's our website. And we also can be found in Medicine Hat at our office at 928 Allowance Avenue Southeast. And the phone number for the office is 526-5521. Thanks so much for joining us today. Mark, again, thank you so much.